first organization that treated me as an individual, not as an investor. We've been in another racing partnership. You didn't even know who your other partners were. Parting Glass is like one big happy family.
Join Saratoga's original racing partnership. Visit us online at partingglassracing.com.
This is the OTB Communications Network.
Now, Track Facts with Tom Amello and Nick Kling.
Well, good morning, racing fans. Welcome to Track Facts. I'm Tom Amello alongside Nick Kling. I want to remind you that this program is sponsored by the good folks at Parting Glass Racing, and you can check them out at partingglassracing.com. It's a glorious day. I'm back from a freshening in the North Country. And I'm fresh okay because it rained for 8 of the 9 days that my beloved wife and I were up there, but we had a good chance to see some relatives and friends, and I spent most of my time huddled up with the Jim Mazur's books because no internet, nothing to download. I couldn't even get your emails. So
Did you find the moose?
I was searching for this moose. Actually, we saw a couple of deer, a little Bambi-ish kind of fawn and the like. And so it was a wonderful time away from things, but now it's time to get back to business. And I don't know about you, but it's good to be back, and we'll get talking about all that's important in racing and what's coming up. Let's talk about a couple of OTB promotions coming up, and we already had an email on this one. On next Saturday, the 18th, it's the Expo, and I'll be there, along with several of our good friends. Tom Gallo will be speaking on ownership for Parting Glass Racing. Phil Gregoire and Jake Jacobs from Racing Flow. They've been on the show several times. If you go to their website, you can get some good information on the upgrades and downgrades and how that information has fared over the last couple of weeks, and they've done very well there. Dan Illman from Daily Racing Form. You all know him. He has the DVD Trip Handicapping, as well as a book on pedigree handicapping. He does in-depth pedigree analysis for juvenile racing at Saratoga. We're really looking forward to hearing from Dan. We'll also have several vendors present. Brisnet is there, Daily Racing Form, the Racing Flow folks. For every individual who is live and in attendance next Saturday, Racing Flow will make available their products for 4 weeks. That'll pretty much get you through the entire Saratoga meeting, and they'll be there to explain how you can use their products. And I think that's an incredibly fair and generous offer. Charlie Judge, the track judge, will be there. His material is available to folks in the winner's circle. Charlie will be talking about the judge reports at the teletheater. Jim Mazur may or may not be here in person. Jim vacations in Vermont this time of the year with his family. That's his freshening. And we have to see if it'll suit his schedule. But I will have Jim's material. Now, what I will have the Saratoga Handicapper, which will be available at its cover price of $29.95. We had an email from Paul who wanted to know which particular products Jim will have available. We've got the handicapper, but if you're interested in anything else, you can get it well before the meet. Frank DeTondo will be joining us. He's the 1-minute handicapper for folks who are new to the game and also who are looking to kind of sharpen the saw. Very interesting material. And our good friend Sean Clancy will be back with some information about the upcoming jump season for Saratoga. 9 races, including the New York Turf Riders. And, we here at this table enjoy the jumps. Nikki, I wish there'd be more, but they're not, and that's that. So next Saturday, the 18th, Also, there'll be some promotional giveaways in a raffle form, if you will. Marketing will be giving away some of Jim Mazur's books and some of Dan Illman's DVDs. They'll be arriving shortly. Frank DeTonda will be offering discounts on the 1 Minute Handicapper and so on. So it'll be a good opportunity to get together. We're hoping for a good crowd, a solid crowd, and of course this will be streamed over the web for those of you who are outside the area. Also, we want you to know that there's a capital off-track betting promotion. Bet 50, get 50. Nikki, I like these promotions. If you don't have a phone account, this is a great way to get started. And who's going to give you $50 these days?
You can't lose.
You can't.
Even if you lose all $50 of your wager, you get it right back.
Even if you lose, you win. I like that. And so new account holders sign up during July. Next Sunday, Capital Off-Track President John Signer will be joining us in the studio. He has done that on a regular basis every quarter or so. And John will be in here taking questions and your phone calls. Lots going on in racing throughout the state and lots going on here at OTB. We are in the process of putting together the Saratoga programming schedule. Jim Barber is working feverishly out at the backstretch at Saratoga. And as programming is finalized, we'll have that for you as well. On July 26th, and you're going to write a column about all the pre-Saratoga events, but I'll just talk about the fact that the NYRA Open House is Sunday the 26th. It's a wonderful day, great fundraising day, steeplechase races. Nick and I will be doing a handicapping seminar as we've done in the past. And on that day, all programming will generate from the backstretch, and we will have Gene Woods and Shannon Donovan to talk about programming and promotions for the Saratoga meet. So we're looking forward to that. Now I'm back. By the way, I want to give a track fact salute to our good friend Jeff Carl. Thank him for sitting in for the both of us. It's proven. We've got a couple of emails over the week commending Jeff for his yeoman's work with us and suggesting that he should be here more often. Nick, fortunately, they're not suggesting that one of us should be here less often. But we're grateful to Jeff for that, and we want you to know that Jeff will be working with Nick and I during the meet. He'll be helping us produce this show, and he'll be appearing also on several of the Monday shows. So you'll see Jeff Carl, and we're looking forward to working with him. A couple of things here, Nick. Gio Ponte, this horse can flat out run, yes?
Well, I think he, right now, he's clearly the best turf horse in the country, at least, from my point of view. I mean, yesterday he was forced out of his normal game, which is to lay back and make one big run. Yesterday he was in the Man o' War, 1 3/8, a very moderate pace. I think the half-mile split was 49.99, basically. A 52nd half mile. He was closer to the pace than he probably would like to have been. Made a 4-wide move on the turn, and he just ran them off their feet.
Let's just switch tack in sections of the country. They ran the Hollywood Gold Cup yesterday. They ran a filly in the race. She finished well, but not a non-threatening third, I do believe. 2 speeds around the track, kind of an upset winner in a race that was somewhat wide open, but maybe the last Hollywood Gold Cup.
May very well be. They're gassing up the bulldozers and getting ready to knock it down, I guess.
That's going to make a big change for racing. Lawyer Ron has passed. I was telling Nick before we came on air, we did have a DVD player, and I rewatched the first Saturday in May. It was a wonderful production. Got me back in touch with Lawyer Ron, and then I come back and read that he's been euthanized. Nick, the efforts take their toll.
Well, there's no question about the fact that Lawyer Ron was actually one of the exceptions of horses that run in the Kentucky Derby. Many horses that run in the Kentucky Derby are never the same afterward. He was able to manage to win the 2 Saratoga Stakes a couple of years ago as an older horse. Hopefully, we'll see more of that this summer when Belmont Stakes winner Summer Bird and hopefully Kentucky Derby winner Mine That Bird point for races at Saratoga. But Lawyer Ron, is just a young stallion, just, what was he, 7 years old?
Yeah.
So he hadn't produced many foals. I don't think his first foals have made it to the races yet, but from what I've heard, he's dropped some pretty good-looking foals.
Yep. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the latest controversy surrounding trainer Richard Dutrow. A suspension for 15 days in Kentucky, up to 30 days. And again, as we were talking before we came on air, there are folks in both camps as to whether or not this is fair, unfair, given the broader context of how trainers have been able to do this and jockeys have been able to do this. This is fodder for a column or what?
Well, I think the whole issue of medication is fodder for a relatively continual columns, because it's one of the things that's on the mind of racing fans and bettors all the time. Personally, I have no problem whatsoever with the Kentucky people doubling Dutrow's penalty to 30 days. I think 15 days in the beginning was ridiculous. It's less than a slap on the wrist. The interesting thing will be to see, one of the fine prints in the ruling, as I read, is that he has to transfer his horses to a trainer that does not have a financial interest in his stable. So I assume that means none of his assistant trainers. And if Kentucky adheres to that, then will New York do the same? Mm-hmm. Will New York have to demand that Dutrow does not have horses started under the name of Juan Rodriguez or Lawrence, whatever the guy was in New Jersey 2 or 3 years ago? And that's actually a question that I'll be posing to the State Racing and Wagering Board to find out if that's what will happen in New York as well, because that's what ought to happen.
Is that you're talking about the context of reciprocity?
Yeah, exactly so.
Because that language does not exist, to your knowledge, in New York, does it? Financial?
Well, there's language, and I think it was Mike Veach was telling me once. I'm pretty sure it was Mike, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. Mike, I think, was telling me, or someone was it was our good friend Dick Hamilton was telling us once that at one time when a trainer was suspended, you couldn't even feed the horses with the same feed tubs that the suspended trainer had in his operation. So, whether that is still in the rules or not, I can't say.
Okay. I was remiss at the top of the show because I was so engaged and engrossed in talking about myself. I forgot to talk about our guests today. We're going to have 2 phone guests. Our first, Stephen Chris from the Daily Racing Form. Formulator Web has now been further enhanced by a product called Ticket Maker. And bottom line, it's a computer program that is intended to help folks construct multi-race tickets, and who better to have created it in its original form and to talk about it other than Steve Chris. So we'll have Steve right after the commercial break, and after Steve we're going to be joined by our good friend Ed Bain. Those of you who have been with us for a long time know that Ed is the creator of the concept of the layoff and claim play, first, second, third, or fourth after the layoff or claim. I mean, the basic question Ed asked as a handicapper is when do trainers get the money? And if they don't get it in the first 4, how are you going to know? He's done the same thing with debut stats and all sorts of other stats relative to trainers. And he's created trainer past performances. Now, we had Ed on earlier in the year when he first put his past performances online. And now he's got New York up, and we're going to talk about that. I'm choking. We're going to go to commercial break. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Amello and Nick Kling. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for joining us. We are delighted to be joined once again by our good friend Steve Crist from the Daily Racing Form. Steve authored the book Exotic Betting, and he's here today to talk about a portion of the book, Multi-Race Exotics, and the latest enhancement to Formulator, Ticket Maker. Steve, welcome back to the program.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're terrific because it stopped raining up here and things are fine. Steve, a couple of things here. Now that Ticket Maker is formally a part of formulated product, I went back to your book and started to look at what you had actually written. And where I'd like to start, and before we talk about the program itself, is just the whole concept and the context of multi-race betting. And one of the questions you pose on page 103 of the books is, are you playing in a bankroll appropriate pool? And I think before we talk about how Ticket Maker will help folks, let's just talk about who should and shouldn't be in the pool, the multi-race pools.
Yeah, well, it's America. You can play whatever pool you want.
Well,
but,
you know what I mean.
My experience has been that a lot of players probably are playing at one pool too difficult for the amount of money that they're comfortable getting involved with. If you're coming to the track, with a bankroll for the day of $100, you probably shouldn't, tie up half of it playing the pick six. It's my experience that a $48 investment in the pick six is not much better than setting your money on fire. It just doesn't give you enough enough combinations to be competitive. It ties up way too much of your available cash. And, I think that some players who are playing the pick four, say, with, $18 or $24, would probably do better dropping back a notch and playing the pick three with that kind of bankroll. These bets, even though they're only a $1 minimum, having only 12 or 16 combinations available to you in a pick four, it's very, very tough to get through one with that little money.
And I appreciate what you said. You're absolutely right. Certainly anybody can be in any pool, but the bottom line is to get money out of the pool, and Ticket Maker is a way to construct tickets using your opinion with the best available bankroll and most efficient bankroll. So let's talk about how it's come from your methodology, what I call paper and pencil, to an electronic enhancement to Formulator.
Yeah, what Ticket Maker really does is to automate, something I've been doing on the back of scrap paper and envelopes for 20 years, which is to make out multiple tickets in these multi-race bets. I've found over the years, starting with the pick six and now with the pick four becoming so popular, it seems to me that the most successful players I know don't just make out one ticket using every horse that they'd like to include. That there are smarter ways of spending your money by making out multiple tickets and giving yourself options. So that if you're really right in a couple of races early in the sequence, if you can really narrow it down to one or two horses, then it opens you up in the later races to add additional horses. So rather than, if you're putting, say, $48 into a pick four, rather than just making one ticket that goes 2 by 3 by 2 by 4, there are ways to make out 4 or 5 tickets, spend the same $48, and give yourself a chance to pick up, some additional long shots in one of the races.
We need to make it perfectly clear that Ticket Maker does not handicap races for you.
Absolutely not. It's a money management ticket making program. You still got to come up with the horses on your own.
Steve, were you at all part of the software development, or how did it get from the book and theory to something like it is now?
Well, really, once the programmers wrapped their mind around it and the light bulb went off, they did all the work. I didn't participate in the actual software construction. And when I try to explain multiple tickets to people, they frequently just stare at me like I've got two heads. But once they start fooling around with it, I think with this little piece of software, for a lot of people, they're going to go, Oh, now I see how it works. And, this is a colorful, fun, simple to operate thing rather than listening to me rant on like a lunatic.
Yeah, well, we have the ability to put up the reader's guide on our screen for folks. And Nikki, if you scroll down to the categorizing horses, we'll show folks what Steve's talking about in terms of colorful. In other words, Steve, there are boxes representing the legs of races and also boxes that represent the opinion horses. And why don't you just go over the ABCs and X's, please?
Yeah, what you really do as a first step is to designate every horse that you're interested in using on your ticket as either an A, a B, or a C selection. With the A's being your top choices, usually 1 to 3 horses a race, the ones that you're willing to anchor your play around. B horses being the next tier of horses, of strong contenders, and C's are those kind of marginal contenders and appealing long shots who, if you're right everywhere else, it would be great to pick up in this, one, say, wide open leg in the race. And once you drag your horses into either the A, B, or C columns, the program then calculates how much it would cost to cover all those horses on various tickets.
Yep.
And, if on your first pass it comes up $120 and you only want to spend $60, then you got to start moving some horses around and downgrading them.
Steve, I've noticed that in your blog on Daily Racing Form, you often go over some of the methodology and the horses that you've used. And you might, rather than just designate them A, B, or C, you might have, a BC or an AB or that sort of thing. And I'm sure many of our listeners out there do the same thing. It's, I like, horse 5 if the 6 is scratched and the 5 becomes lone speed and that sort of thing. So can you describe a little bit, the methodology that you use when you're fine-tuning your A, Bs, and Cs?
Yeah, I mean, on a first pass through a sequence where you designate horses as A's, B's, and C's, almost all the time you're going to end up with tickets that are just more money than you want to spend. There's almost always a kind of second round of winnowing. Now, if you're just playing one ticket in these bets, as most people do, you end up shaving horses out of your play entirely, and those seem to be the kind of horses, who come back and bite you when it's all over, and that interesting 8-to-1 shot who you just couldn't afford on a single ticket play. And in that second round process, they're very tricky hairline decisions, and that's what a lot of these things come down to. You're not necessarily always using the horse you think has the slightly greater chance of victory, but frequently you'll upgrade a horse because you think he's going to be 10 or 12 to 1, and you think he has just as good a chance as almost anyone. And you might end up downgrading to a C or throwing out entirely, a kind of 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 second choice who you just say at the end of the day, you know what, I'm willing to let this horse beat me.
And Steve, I think it's important to mention, I don't think our listeners need to be reminded, but New York cards a lot more races now that some people would say are lower quality than they used to at Saratoga or the Belmont Summer Meet, or we've got the turf sprints now, the New York bred races at a much higher percentage than they used to be on a 9 or 10 race card. And if you get a turf sprint, for example, where maybe you leave 5 or 6 horses open, if you're trying to play what you would call a caveman ticket, it can get pretty expensive.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Sometimes in those open races, you end up having to split up horses. If you've still got 6 horses open in one of those impossible turf sprints, rather than going 6 deep in that race on a single ticket and having to shave everything else down to 1 or 2 horses, you might end up having to split those 6 horses into 3 A's and 3 B's, or 2 A's, 2 B's, and 2 C's, and make some preferences there. And, again, if everything else works out perfectly, you'll still be alive to all 6 of them. But, you know, if things go slightly amiss, you might only have 4 of them. If things go very amiss, you might only have 2 of them. But at least it keeps you in the game.
Steve, Tom Amello here again. Printing, you can print the tickets, which I think is interesting and important. And, you know, you also talk about in the book and everywhere else, really, that this is a game of preparing, of preparation. And so while if someone has Formulator on the laptop, they can be creating tickets at the track, if you will. Creating early tickets and printing them out gives you a chance to see exactly how your opinion might be spent.
Yeah, and if you just arrive at the track or begin your day of wagering with some kind of a rough plan in place, that gives you such a leg up on everyone else. You know, one of the things that should always make a horse player feel good is when he sees people standing on the betting line, still doing their handicapping and still trying to figure out their tickets, because that's a tough way to succeed at the track. But, you know, if you come even with a rough draft and then you make adjustments depending on a late scratch or 2 or how the track is playing, you're in much better shape than figuring it out with 3 minutes to post.
Two final things. First of all, I do believe that Ticketmaker will be available through the end of July with all forms of web formulator, and then after August 1st, it'll be part of the upper tier version. Is that correct?
Yeah, we wanted to give people the month of July to fool around with it, play with it, see if it's something they like and something they want to upgrade to in the future.
Last thing, Steve, and this is nothing to do with Ticketmaker. From time to time, Tim O'Leary has secured for us several of your handicappers from Daily Racing Form. And I want to tell you that both our audience and we here, we're always impressed when we get to meet a Mike Welch or Steve Klein or a Jim Kachulis or Brian and so on. And you all should be commended for the quality of the work. And I know they work very hard. They're articulate, and they're just terrific handicappers. That being said, Dan Illman is going to join us for our expo. It's a return for him. Would you talk a little bit about Dan as a person, as a handicapper, and kind of just tell our folks what they're going to see when they see him next week?
Well, you know, Dan is a very popular handicapper with us. Dan wrote the first blog that ever appeared on drf.com, and he has a wide following, especially among our younger customers. And he's very big on community and interactivity and getting people involved. His specialty as a handicapper is 2-year-old racing and maiden races. You know, Dan just loves to do this massive amount of work on first-time starters, and he can tell you everything about a horse's third dam and a sire's winning percentage, and that's what he really enjoys.
Steve, a final question for me. You know, our listeners would probably shoot me if I didn't ask you about the upcoming Saratoga meet, which starts in about 2.5 weeks. You know, any opinions going into the meet? Are you expecting, you know, our typical good Saratoga racing if the weather cooperates? Any predictions for Saratoga 2009?
Well, I expect it to be, you know, the usual kind of top-class meeting. As you alluded to, we do have, you know, a lot more lower-tier racing at Saratoga than we used to, but, you know, especially during the week, but that's kind of how the game has changed. I think one thing you're going to see, and this should be good for all of us, is really strong fields for grass racing. We had a month of June down here. I don't know what it was like up there, you know, that with just record amounts of rain, and more than 60 races were rained off the grass in May and June. So I think you're going to have a lot of horses who missed starts, full fields for grass races. And, you know, if you see a grass horse running who, you know, seems to have missed a couple of starts, doesn't mean there was something wrong with the horse. It means that all his races got washed off the grass.
Okay. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Continued success at DRF, and we'll look forward to seeing you here at Saratoga.
Great. See you guys in, what is it now, 17 days?
You got it. Thank you.
Getting close.
Stephen Christ from Daily Racing Form. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, We'll be joined by Ed Bain. We're going to talk about trainer past performances. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. Tom Amello and Nick Kling, thank you for staying with us. One of the joys of this forum that Capital Off Track has allowed us over the years is the opportunity to meet wonderful people, people like you, people like us. We consider ourselves, yes, wonderful. We're wonderful people.
Wonderful.
What I mean is that folks who are in the game because we love the game, we enjoy the game, we love the puzzle. And throughout the years, we've had those opportunities to meet these great people, and we're delighted to have back with us Ed Bain, who is one of the innovators in the game. He's the guy who created the notion of first, second, third, and fourth after a layoff or a claim, a debut, and so on. He's the trainer stat man. So Ed, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Tom. How about you?
It's terrific because it's not raining here anymore, and the sun is out. And usually we talk to you in the winter, and you offer to send us some sun or a palm tree or something. But all right, Ed, let's get down to it. You were on a couple of months ago when you first put up your trainer past performances, and you had started with the West Coast. Why don't you just update us on where you are, and then we'll talk about New York. We have the capacity. Again, Nick is at your website. We've got your FAQ page here, as well as just the opening page. So let's go from there. Talk about where you are and where you've come from since the last time we've talked.
We've made quite a bit of progress. We've got Belmont up now, so New York is up. And next is Monmouth, which is like the B circuit for New York. At least that's the way I consider it. And we're starting on the Mid-Atlantic region and probably have that up which is very tough. And New York is very tough also because although they travel, the New York trainers travel a lot, it was a surprise to me when I really started getting into the data, how many ship into New York. So they're shipping in with really, really good horses. So we've got Northern, Southern California, and New York up now. And
go ahead.
And I was just going to say, and New Jersey will be up soon, within a few weeks, a couple of weeks.
All right. So Ed, let's go to the page, and Nikki, just show them what the past performance looked like. Eddie, I presume you're still betting. Okay, I presume you're still betting. We don't talk that often. We communicate on an irregular basis, but I presume you're still betting. And what I want you to do is to just talk to folks about how you've aligned these past performances so that, number one, they serve your needs as a professional player who makes a living betting horses, and how their individual needs can be served by knowing what Ed Bain knows and publishes.
Yeah, the entire thing for me is always separation.
Okay.
Trying to look for things that set up a routine. And the routines are very hard to do in racing because the way the Forum does it and Equibase does it, they just break everything down by 2 past performance blocks, but they don't really tell you anything. So what I wanted to do was a visual representation of a bunch of different things that allow you to go from color to color to color in order to evaluate statistics. And that's what I've done with these past performances. And when you first look at them, they're very easy to understand. Once you understand, just look at the color bar across the top, starting with green, which is the layoff. And it's a 4-race cycle.
Right.
It's separated by sprint and route. And the nice thing about this is when you look at it, you can identify the layoff quickly and easily, and it also matches up the individual layoff also for their statistics. As an example, on the FAQ, you can see that the green has a green line all the way across. Then you look down and there's L2R 60-plus days, so that tells you that today's second after layoff route. And then it gives you the stats for it. And then you go further down under the 4-race cycle, it's in green also. So it identifies where it is in the 4-race cycle. So you can see the algorithms and the ups and downs and how the trainer performs. And that's how I wanted to do everything. Now, the big things, though, for me is individual statistics. I really like if you go all the way across to the right, the purple and the red, red and the purple, those are my 2 main stats. That's what I always go to first. And then the first thing I do is when I open it up...
Those are the 4 and 30s and the automatics.
Right. Those are my betting stats. That's what I evaluate everything off of. Matter of fact, I do very little handicapping of a race. I only evaluate that particular statistic. They can have 15 horses in a race. I have 1 automatic. That's all I try to do is evaluate that automatic. Like today, there's 1 automatic in
New York.
In New York, in race 9, James Bond.
Yep, we're going to get to that after a while, but go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say that I first go to the automatics because they're the most exciting to bet, simply because of their hit rates. But also, they're designed, there's 2 things about the 4+30 and the automatics. The 4+30 is actually a long shot play. That's where I get my real value from. Mm-hmm. The automatics are there to keep my head straight. Because I have to have hits. I mean, the 4+30, when I'm at my best, I'm hitting right around 21-22% win rate. Mm-hmm. The automatics, what they do is they pick me up when I need a win. They may not be big wins, mutual-wise, but they're there just to keep me straight from getting too, when you're betting 100 races and then you're suffering 80 losers, it can be very troubling mentally to keep going through that.
And let me ask you a quick question though. If you're a multi-race player, now we're talking about a style of play here. If you're a multi-race player, the automatics can give you a single in a pick 2, pick 3, or pick 4.
Yes, that's the really big thing about the automatics, is because a lot of the automatics, what happens with them is like these are usually the best trainers at the track. They're high-profile trainers. Usually they have the best jockeys on them. So it's fairly easy to understand them, and all you got to do is look up on the board and see what their odds are, and you know that you've got to contend with a favorite. So, and you have to know why he's a favorite.
Yeah.
And that's what the stats will allow you to do.
Yeah, and one last thing before I turn you to Nick. I mean, the automatic is a higher percentage stat than the 4 and 30, right? It's about a 40% stat.
Yes. The way it works is the 4+30 has 4 wins or more plus a 30% win rate. It's based on a 13-race cycle.
Yep.
But the automatic is actually a very stable stat. It's based on 20 starts and 8 wins.
Okay.
So the advantage to the 4+30 is that it allows me to handicap a stat, no matter what his odds are, and play him.
Okay.
And I put with the 4+30, I always put a filter on it of 5-2. If they have a morning line of 5-2, lower than 5-2, he is not considered a bet.
Gotcha.
Now on the automatic, I don't do that. because the automatic has a 40% win rate on all of them or higher. And if you take 40% and convert that to odds, it's 3-2. So I'm starting off with a 3-2 stat, which would pay $5. But he can be just about anything. But they're generally favorites, or they're about the first, second, or third.
All right, Nick.
Ed, I'm just curious about something. I'm wondering if you've had enough time to evaluate. You said you had Northern and Southern California up before New York. Have you had enough time to evaluate if the stats that you use are as effective on the artificial racing surfaces in California?
That's a good question, Nick. I haven't done it yet because I've been so busy with this and trying to squeeze in a bet here and there too. But it's one of the things that I'm going to be doing, and it's what I'm going to be. Everything you see on that running line is going to have a hit rate to it. In other words, the surface, as an example, moving from synthetic to dirt or dirt to synthetic, any of those kind of moves, and I'm going to be able to find out how a horse performs, the individual horse, and also the trainer, and the jockey, how they all perform together. But that's probably a ways down, and I need more data to get it, actually.
Well, I'll tell you, Ed, you can become sort of the Johnny Appleseed of thoroughbred racing handicappers by finding out that data, because as I'm sure you know, many of our listeners and many people that follow racing and bet on racing around the country just refuse to play synthetic surfaces because they find the results, in their view, confounding. So you can be the person that either drives the nail in the synthetic betting coffin or yanks it out and makes it just as popular as dirt and turf racing. So it's on you, Ed, to find out this stuff.
Well, I'll do it. And the nice thing about that is there's lots of betting opportunities when people won't bet it. And simply because the people that are betting it, they just don't have a clue on why they're betting that horse. Almost always people bet speed. It's almost, other than you, Nick.
Well, but actually, Ed, that's the reason why synthetics have been so controversial, is because the natural intuition that people have to bet, quote, the fastest horse or the horse with an early speed advantage doesn't seem to work as well on most synthetic surfaces. So, as I say, you may find the key. The synthetic track racetracks around the country may want to hire you to convince players that their surfaces are bettable. So you might be able to turn this into a side industry.
Hey, that sounds good to me.
Ed, I have a question for you. One of your stats is the one last race stat, winner last out, or said another way, the potential to repeat. I have two questions for you because it's been a topic of conversation on this show and among handicappers. In general, or do you have a general stat, or what's your feeling? How often do they repeat, and how do you deal with that stat?
I rarely ever bet the next race back.
Okay.
On a repeater, I give them the second race back. As an example, Kirian McLaughlin has one today.
Right, in the fifth, I think, right?
Right, in the fifth, the 4-horse.
Yep.
When you look at him, when you look at his horse, now my speed figures, these are percentages to par.
Yep.
And if you look at it, these are classic bounce patterns on what happens to a winner who won his last race. Now, he came back, he won a race, then the next race back he came and ran 102 and 102% of par. The third quarter is where they always collapse. That's where the bounce hits. And that's where they always lose the race. You can see them, they're generally up with the lead, they may even lead, and then the third quarter they just kind of fade away. In this particular case, that's what happened, and now he's coming back again, and he's a second race after a win in a rout. and he's had 9 starts, 4 wins, and he's a 4+30.
Yep.
44%. Now you combine that with Ramon Dominguez, the jockey,
Right.
who is had 10 starts with McLaughlin and 3 wins. And those 3 things is what's making me make this bet on this horse today. And also, McLaughlin in claiming events is 6 races, 3 wins, a 50% win rate. And those are the things that are making me bet this horse today. Also, he's dropping, which I will have stats on in the very near future. He's dropping from allowance into a claim, and he's also dropping from a $44,000 purse to a $35,000 purse, which is significant because the class drop doesn't mean much to me, but the drop in the purse does. I believe the trainers and the owners, particularly the big owners, know the difference between $44,000 and $35,000 in claim.
Yeah, well, it says to me, Ed, that in the same way you asked the question, when does a trainer get the money after a layoff? You're asked the question, well, when do they get the money after a win? And can they get it right away, or does it take 2 or 3 races to get a horse back to being race fit? So again, I guess the answer to my question that I asked you would be that some trainers can repeat, and you would know who they are by their hit rate, and others, depending on the situation, the horse may need 2, if not 1, if not 2 starts before they get back in the money.
Yeah, and you'll see it all the time where they'll take a horse, a good trainer, say like Carrie Ann McLaughlin, will lay the horse off on a win and then bring him back, and you'll see his stats really climb. And that's what I'm really looking for. I'm not really looking for the repeater who, 14 days ago he won, now he's back in again. There's one today, I forget which race it is. He's won two races, and he's going for his 3rd in a row, and I can't bet a horse like that. And the reason is pretty simple, is, win 2 in a row is pretty tough. Win 3 in a row is like, that's... You're asking a lot.
All right, Ed. You've got, I think there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trainers with 4 and 30s on the Belmont card today, and the 1 automatic. Why don't you just mention the name of the trainer and the number of the horse for the 4 and 30s, and the Bond horse, that's the automatic, and then we'll see how it works today. And you're sending it in on McLaughlin's runner in the 5th. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct. Carrie Ann McLaughlin on race 5, the 4 horse. Also race 6, the 7, Galuccio. Dominique.
So those are the ones that you've decided you're going to bet today, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then there's the automatic in the
9th race.
In the 9th race, right?
That's James Bond. So it's Karen McLaughlin in the 5th, Galuccio in the 6th, and Bond in the 9th. The wonder of talking to you is I don't need to even know the name of the horse. I just need to know the name of the guy, right? Or the gal.
Right. I never mention the horse's name. That's unfortunate. I'm always going to the trainer. By the way, all of your viewers today can get on my site at edbain.com and just click on Contact Ed, and they can all get the past performances for free today.
Okay. Well, that's terrific. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask how Susan is. And have you won her over to win betting, or is she still the exotic player?
She's still the bomber. She still goes for that little win a lot kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've been so busy with this. We really, with her, it takes her a little more time to handicap than it does me. I can take a whole card, like today's card, because of the layout and because of the way I identify each race, and handicap the whole card in like 10 minutes. It's the longest.
There's a part of me that hates you for that, but then again, that means that you can look at several other cards and spend a fruitful hour, right?
Yeah, well, I have a half hour.
Okay. All right, Ed, always great talking to you. We hope one of these days that you and Susan will be back up here for Saratoga when all these trials and tribulations are behind you. We always look forward to talking to you. And we thank you for making the offer to our viewers that if you contact Ed today, he'll send you the PPs for today's races at Belmont. Thanks, Ed. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dick. Thanks, Tom.
Take care, Ed.
Ed Bain. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, it'll be your emails and phone calls. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us today, Tom Amello and Nick Kling. We hope you found our conversation with both Steve Christ and Ed Bain interesting. Again, we'd encourage you to log on to dailyracingforum.com, click on Ticketmaker, and you can find the Reader's Guide. You can print that, take a look at it, see if it suits your needs. And as Ed Bain said, go to edbain.com, hit the contact button, email him your email address, and they'll send you the trainer past performances for Belmont. I love talking to Ed. He's just an interesting guy, and his approach to the game is always as controlled and as steady as his conversation was with us. We've got a couple of open lines. We've already touched on the emails. Let's hear what Dave has to say.
We'll start this morning with Dave in Stonebridge. Dave, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good, David.
Excellent.
Hey, I got a quick comment and a trackside salute.
Okay.
And the trackside salute is to you guys.
Yep.
And let me explain why. I was surfing the channel the other day, 2,000 channels, trying to find a decent show on racing to listen to. And I came across two other shows, and they have a little bit more glitter, a little bit more sparkle than you guys. Some of the hosts, I think they wear Armani suits, and they have football players come by and tennis players, and they handicap. And that is the most god-awful show on earth. I mean, it is such the handicapper and the true fans of the sport. But you guys are the two most knowledgeable person that I know. And I'm not going to say that you guys are right all the time, but when you guys answer a question, we can tell that it's from your heart.
Well, we thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate that very much.
And can I have a quick comment for Jeffrey Carr, if you're out there, Jeffrey, because I'm no longer with Stonebridge.
Okay.
I'm like the bird that had to fly the coop.
Okay.
And he's seen me in the backstretch, and he tried to confiscate my jacket and my Stonebridge shirt and my Stonebridge hat. And I just want to say, Jeffrey, I'm no longer with Stonebridge, but Stonebridge will always be with me.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dave. We appreciate it.
Take care. A couple of things here. We've got a couple of open lines. The emails are due to come in, I hope. We need to talk about something.
Yes.
Before we came on air, we were talking about Churchill Downs.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a, let me read this one. Let's see, Dominic, we got an email from Dominic who says, what do we think of Dick Girardi's idea about NYRA creating a $2 million race in late September? He suggests inviting Rachel Alexandra, Zenyatta, Einstein, Minette Bird, and a few others. For $2 million, I think he could get more than a few. A network could be found to televise and promote it, and perhaps money could be made through selling tickets and merchandise. Perhaps well, if they couldn't make any money, Dominic, I don't think they'd do it. Do we think it might capture the casual fan's attention? I was talking to Nick off air about this mention of Dick Girardi's idea, and we were talking about Churchill Downs and Rachel Alexandra at Belmont. So let's.
Well, on the surface, I don't know how anyone would argue with such an idea to bring together,
right,
all the best horses in the country in a special race. In theory, that's what the Breeders' Cup is supposed to do. But as we have discovered, there are some folks that are unhappy with the Breeders' Cup on an artificial surface, particularly for 2 years in a row. And apparently, Rachel Alexandra won't be at the Breeders' Cup. So as I say, on the surface, as racing fans in general, yes, it sounds like a great idea. As New York racing fans in particular, it would be great for us if they would do that at Saratoga. It would be almost as good if they did it down at Belmont Park. But here's the bottom line, Dominic, and anybody else that would, like such an idea. New York got less than 14,000 people to show up at Belmont Park to see Rachel Alexandra run, and that was with, I believe, free admission,
right,
for ladies that day. At Churchill Downs, they got 33,000 with your average Friday afternoon card at Churchill Downs, and they got 33,000 at $6 a head for admission plus parking. Because they did it at night and people thought they were going to have a party. So on one hand,
right,
you've got your 13,000 for Rachel Alexandra, the best horse.
On a weekend, during the day.
During the day, on a weekend, let's say the co-best horse in training along with Zenyatta. And up here is Churchill Downs with mediocre racing and nighttime partying. So it sounds to me like the casual fan is more interested in beer than they are horses.
And the question is, is that the way racing has to go? Just to get people to come to the track and experience the track? Does it have to be a party? And oh, by the way, there's a horse race. I don't know about
well,
that.
there was a time when I would have come for the beer. I mean, that's changed, and changed for a number of years. But you got to look at what the realities are, and those are the realities.
And I think we should mention that question. I think it was you. I don't know if it was you, but that question was raised at the NYRA Media Conference. And Charlie Haywood said there won't be any lights at Saratoga, temporary lights at Saratoga. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so far things are going are not going to be changed drastically. We got some phone callers. We got another email coming in. Let's go to the lines, Nick.
The phones are filling up, so we'll go to Bill in Colony is our next caller. Bill, good morning. What's on your mind?
Good morning, guys. It's just all of this mix of gambling, legalized gambling, and racetracks and everything. And I loved Gulfstream Park, and I look at what it did to Gulfstream Park, and it just, I don't understand it. That was a great racetrack, and what Stronach did to that, in my mind, is almost criminal as far as as a race fan is concerned. Comment on it.
Well, I think you've kind of put the nail. You've hit it, Bill. From Frank Stronach's point of view. And this isn't really a devil's advocate position because I wouldn't agree with it even as the devil's advocate, but Stronach's point of view was that Gulfstream was a racetrack for about 3.5 months out of the year, and it was a simulcast facility for the other 8.5 or 9 months. So that's why he rebuilt it the way he did, to try and take advantage of the so-called, necessities, luxuries, whatever you want to call them, for simulcast fans. But by doing so, he made it less of a racetrack for racing fans, and in theory, that's what it should be about, live racing. So I guess if there's any good news out of that whole story, it's that among the few things that New York has done right in the last few years is they rejected Stronach's notion that Saratoga needed to be a destination where families and people wanted to come. Well, I think people already want to come just the way it is.
Yeah, I have nothing to add on that, and the model is what it is, and it's probably going to go away.
Going to go to Albany now and speak with Paul. Paul, good morning.
How you doing, guys?
Very good, Paul. Thanks for
Where
calling.
do you rank Lascano? Do you rank him up there in the top 5 as far as like decision making? And I mean, you just get overlay city upon overlay city on this guy. What do you think?
Well, there's no question about it, Paul. He's the you know, the new Rafael Bejarano, who 4 or 5 years ago, you know, most bettors didn't know much about, and those that followed the game closely did. And I think Lascano he's almost out of that category now, into the top rank where those overlays are going to start disappearing. Hopefully, he'll be at Saratoga this summer. And we'll still get those overlays, but he's a terrific rider, and you got to love him on turf.
But he was a good rider when he was here in New York, and then you know, he's done well wherever he's gone.
Yeah, well, he's there was a Lorenzo Lascano, so you may be thinking of Lorenzo because Jose didn't run in New York that much until this past year, but he's certainly got to be right up there with the top jockeys in the country right now, and as Paul you know, kind of alluded to, he's the overlay among jockeys because he's not as well known among the general public.
Let's go to Randy.
Randy and Kanjahari. Randy, good morning.
Hello, I'm still here.
Yeah. Oh, Paul.
I just wanted decision making with this bias. You may not have the best. Am I still on there?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. You may not have the best like Amanda Casey, for instance, and you get a guy like Cornelio or like Prado or these guys. You think that they think all the time and they're like on top of their game. If you watch the bias, and I literally seen 10 or 20 moves with these jockeys going wide on an inside bias at Belmont for 2 weeks. It was an inside bias, and constantly you see these guys going wide, spinning their tires, and then bringing them to the rail, and you know, coming alive. I seen Dominguez do it with one of the Paracello horses a way back. I mean, they don't think half the time. That's how you can get an overlay. You get the guy that like athletically is the better jockey, but a lot of this game is thinking. You know, staying on the rail the whole way, like Chavez, and then off-track specialist. He's the best mud track. I mean, there's nobody even close when it comes into mud. He's by far the best mud jockey in the country. And another thing, with these stewards, you got to get them on here so we can talk to them and ask them questions, because you got to get some smart people, too, in the stewards' office. 3 weeks ago, there was a Contessa horse that got put up. It was an absolute joke. The horse came up the rail. He had no room to come up the rail, and they took the horse down on the lead. It was absolute disgrace.
Okay, Paul, thanks a lot.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to get a Q&A with the stewards, at least not on this program. And you know, that might be something that NYRA might want to try and do as a promo, or the State Racing and Wagering Board might want to do, but that's not going to happen here. We got an email, an interesting email. We got a couple of open lines here. Tim says, maybe we've done this before. I'd be interested in some discussion on turf racing, especially as it relates to Belmont and Saratoga. He says, how do we organize our thoughts about sprint to route, inner to outer, effective rail placement, first timers at a route distance, trainer effect versus pedigree? You know, little things like that. I'm only kidding you, Tim. Those are great points, and he says, sounds like a whole show. And I think it sounds like what we should be talking about as we wend our way to Saratoga. So, Nikki, let's just start with the rail placement bullet that he talks about here. And I don't know if there are statistical studies on performance with the rail at 0 feet, 9 feet, 18 feet, and so on. But it appears that the anecdotal or the mythology is that the further the rail out, the better the inside.
That's the mythology.
That's the mythology. Well, you know, so you watch every race in New York, you know where the rails go. When the rails go out, does it affect your handicapping, or how are you going to take a look at the race?
You know, the only thing I would say about that, Tim, is I've been keeping track of the rail positioning in New York for a while now. I mean, before this year. And I can't say that that's as an important factor in an outcome of the race as the other things that you would think of first. You know, things like, you know, what the pace is,
Right.
and what the course condition is. I think course condition is a very, very, very underrated factor in the outcome of turf racing among, you know, many, let's say, less than full-time handicappers and bettors. There are some horses that will just not handle certain course conditions. There are others that will run as well when it's soft as when it's firm, and then there are others that will perform better when it's soft than when it's firm. And I think that's a far more important issue. So the problem then becomes, if you're trying to evaluate, well, now let's say the rail is out at 18 feet on the inner turf course today, and the track is firm, the course is firm. So in theory, that should help the inside speed. But what if the inside speed is a horse that prefers a soft course, and he's going to get a firm course today? They ran a turf race in Jersey yesterday at Monmouth that was a mile and I think 132 and change. That tells me that the course is getting pretty firm down there. I think there were 3 sprints on the Widener turf course yesterday at Belmont where there was no turf rail. So you would think that they would be the least speed favoring condition. All 3 were wire to wire.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I think it's very, very difficult without enough data, and the only way to get the data would be to have access to the Equibase records going back several years. But the problem, Tim, they didn't used to keep accurate records about where the rail was placed.
Right.
So, you know, the theory that I carry with me is that the further out the rail is, the more favorable it is for inside speed. Now, I know that our friend Dick Powell did a study at Gulfstream a couple of years ago when it was just the opposite. Closers did better at Gulfstream the further the rail was out. So, you know, it depends on, you got different course configuration. It's just, sometimes I think you can, you know, you might, let's put it this way. You handicap the race, you say, I think this is the best horse, but the rail is in such and such a position. Well, that horse goes ahead and wins anyway. It's a very, very thorny subject.
But I think you said something important. You handicap the race and figure out who the best horse is. Now you take a look at the, and as you do, you factor in those other variables, that other context. When you know, I wrote down when you said course condition, and it brought to my mind Michael Dickinson walking the turf course to find out
in high heels.
In high heel, right? Well, or whatever it is. You know, but the point. Now, let me ask you this: is there any suggestion that firm, good to soft, are they unclear terms?
There's no question about.
Well, let's talk about that.
The fact that they're unclear, and you know, even though.
Because you know dirt.
Well, but you know, it's been proven time and again that the track variants used in the daily racing form are less than perfectly accurate, and the reason being that they're based on the best 3-year time, so that if you've got better horses running on a Saturday, you're going to get a different track variant than if you had the same races and the exact same course condition on a Wednesday when there might be maiden claimers running on the turf. So but having said that, even though the track variant for turf racing may not be 100% accurate, I consider that a better tool toward determining how soft the course was than I do the printed track condition, course condition, because if it says the track was good, and if it says the turf was good, and the variant for that day was a 5,
right?
Excuse me, that's pretty firm turf.
Yeah, that's interesting, and you know, we've had folks call and comment on the lack of validity of daily racing forms variant, but I know some folks who use it with some success. We got a couple of phone calls. Let's get back to the line.
Back to the phones, and it's to Jerry in Albany. Jerry, good morning.
Good morning.
What's on your mind, Jerry?
Just per your, I don't know if you were discussing turf conditions. A friend of mine emailed me the information on Australia, and it's quite interesting. They have like 10, it was like a list of 10 different conditions, and of course some would be like heavy, but heavy with explanations, like 3 different types of heavy. But their explanations were very, very detailed, obviously were scientifically measured in some way, and I'm not sure if that's something that we want, to be utilized in American racing, but they certainly are, making it a more scientific, measurement than we are.
I know in some racing jurisdictions, Jerry, they use a penetrometer, which gives them a numerical reading, of how much force it takes to penetrate the ground. Now, to tell you the truth, I don't know whether that's used in conjunction with setting the track condition in New York, and that's a question that we probably could ask the track superintendent.
Right. And I actually have a recommendation today.
Okay.
What the heck, right?
What the heck?
What is it? Debbie's Fast Girl in the 8th race at Belmont Park.
What's the number, Nick?
It's the one.
Yep.
It's part of an entry.
Speed horse, Jerry.
Oh, you know what? I'm offended because everybody just automatically. This is becoming a sore spot with me. I'm going through a detox thing about speed handicapping because my friend says on my epitaph it's going to read 11116 for the chart that's attached to me, and so I'm very sensitive to that. But the answer to your question is no, it is not a speed horse, which of course I had to get past that and do some soul searching. But anyway, this one looked interesting to me, coming off a soft turf performance and a couple of decent workouts, and that's what I'm recommending.
Jerry, before you hang up, I do have to say to our audience, you've been a kind and generous contributor and a caller and a part of our audience for some time, and we have had conversations about how much you like that horse is going to make the front. So I meant no disrespect, certainly.
Let me just say that this is a running joke, and I take it perfectly well, although I feign, being upset because everybody everywhere in the world, the first thing they ask me that, is it a horse, is it a front runner? They just assume I never bet a horse that comes from behind, and some days I never do, but this one is going to have to pass some horses, so I'll have to deal with that possibility, I guess.
Okay,
Jerry, did you happen to have the Howie Tesher horse in the last race at Belmont yesterday?
Oh, no. You know what?
I'm so glad you brought it up.
This is even with my tremendous speed, acumen, ability, I couldn't come up with that one. But you know what? Thank you for asking. Anyway, I couldn't come up with that one. If I knew he'd make the lead, I would have bet on him automatically.
All I'm going to say is there was some question. There was some question as to whether or not, Howie was going to be up here. Well, he's got shipping money now.
Yeah, well, and you know what? The truth is, I didn't make that horse at all. But in a cheap race, and especially, and I don't mind on the turf, especially on the turf. People don't like betting speed. I think having a horse on the lead on a decent turf course with lesser horses, let's say, chasing them, is a terrific situation to be in. To bet speed, and that's an example. Although I never read board that I would have hit that horse.
No.
I did bet Tres Barachos and got nothing out of it in the Hollywood Gold Cup, though. So that was a good speed horse that got me nothing.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate the call.
Sure.
With really no disrespect for Mr. Tesher, who has had his time when he won a lot of races and had some good owners. I forgot because I wanted to go back after I saw that race yesterday. I wanted to go into Formulator and see what his record was or has been for the last, let's say, 90 days, a year. Are you at all familiar with
I'm just familiar enough to know that it could have been Secretariat and I wouldn't have been playing him. But and by the way, I think Jerry made a good point, and I'm sure many of our listeners out there are aware of this. The last few weeks of the Belmont Summer Meet can become a very, very good time to bet speed on the Widener turf course. And you know, it's not brain surgery really. What happens? You get a lot of rain in the spring, you know, and in this case, in June, you know, the grass grows very lushly. So now it starts to dry out. The grass is evaporating the moisture. You know, the moisture is transpiring through the grass and evaporating, and it quickly goes from softer to firm to hard in a much shorter period of time than you would expect. So now and that's the conditions when elusive quality set the course record a few years ago for a mile. And we may have, if it does not rain in New York, between now and Saratoga, speed will be the way to go on the turf course.
We're going to take one more phone call, and then we have to go to commercial break. So let's go to Rotterdam.
John in Rotterdam is next. John, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Hi, John.
Sorry I missed most of the show. I just got in from church. I watched faithfully, and I love the show.
Thank you.
On the subject you were speaking of the horse yesterday, it's funny because there's a guy that is a local handicapper. He has a website, playabs.com. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
I'm not, Joe.
No.
Well, he had that horse yesterday.
Good for him.
He had the 800-hour exacta, and he drops bombs all over the place. He's a local guy. That's all I know, and I know he had some type of reputation at Saratoga, but he had that. And I was just wanted to mention that. I thought that was pretty.
It's a good score.
Yeah.
It's a great score.
And it's worth a Trackfacts salute to him.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
If you know him, get him to call us. We'll talk to him.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Commercial break,
Yeah,
you
commercial
said.
break. We got a couple of calls on the line. Please be patient. When we come out of commercial, we'll get right to you. We'll be right back. We had an emailer, Nick, who responded to, I guess it was Anthony, who mentioned that Bobby Frankel is not well. There was a column in the Daily Racing Form that suggested that he's been fighting some undisclosed condition for some time. We don't know what it is. We're not doctors. So we haven't heard. We're not going to probe. We wish him well. And that's that from us. That's all we know.
To paraphrase Leonard McCoy, I'm a handicapper, not a bricklayer.
Let's go to Saratoga, talk to John.
John in Saratoga. John, what do you got this morning?
Good morning, guys.
Hi, John.
Well, Saratoga's got the winning combination. That's the model they should follow. You get the families, you get the partiers.
Yeah, that you
and
do.
You get the serious horse players that add to the handle. And that's what they should be. You got to have the nice park and the good racing. And that'll get the people in. But anyway, talking about jockeys, what about this Ramon Dominguez?
What about him?
Oh, this guy's riding great. I mean, that ride yesterday, it's like someone was screaming in there, "You're a genius, Dominguez." He won like 4 races yesterday, and he had that horse up front, and the speed's great there. That's the thing, and he knew it. That horse was forwardly placed, and he's like a car right now, that horse. But and $6.30 is like printing money. When I mean, I couldn't understand the odds. You had Dancing Forever open up at a shorter price, and that horse has had problems for a while, where this horse has been hitting on all cylinders practically its entire career. So,
well, John, I think that we had an earlier caller mention, you know, how Jose Lezcano has been taking advantage of inside trips at Belmont Park, and I think that that's one of the reasons that Ramon Dominguez wins as many races as he does. Now, you know, as you pointed out, he had Gio Ponte on the outside yesterday, but Dominguez wins a ton of turf races because he saves as much ground as is possible. Now, every once in a while, that means you're going to run into traffic and you're going to have to wait for room, or you might not get the room. But the bottom line is you're going to win more turf races by saving ground and taking a chance on traffic than you are by going, you know, 4 or 5 wide with a horse that isn't superior like Gio Ponte. You know, when you go wide, you're going to lose in turf racing. That's just the bottom line.
yeah, but he rides like that in every race.
Yep.
He does the same thing in the dirt. That's just his philosophy.
Yep.
And it pays off. But also, I like one today.
We're waiting for that one. What do you like?
The 4th race, I like that one horse. My Dinah, I think. Is it the one? It's My Dinah in the 4th.
Yep.
And, I mean, she's going to have to beat the 3. The 3 is going to be the 4 to 5 shot, but I'm going with the speed. I'm going just you guys were talking about. I think the 3 is going to have to come after the 1. So,
well, John, I think I have good news for you.
What?
My Dinah is not my top choice in that race, but the other side of that coin is
Mary.
she is my long shot play of the day.
Mary and Cahos.
You know, so I don't know whether you're jinxed or not, but she's not my top choice, so you're probably safe.
Yep. Well, that $100 horse got me yesterday. So.
Okay.
Thanks,
I need
John.
a long shot. Thanks.
Okay, well, that was one. Let's go to
We're
Boston
going to go
Lake.
north to Ballston Lake, and we're going to speak with Greg. Greg, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, you guys?
Excellent.
You kind of hit on a pet peeve of mine.
And that is?
Let's take the Kentucky Derby day. I fully expected in the morning after listening to Mark and Mike and talking to the track superintendent that the track was going to be fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I made my bet fully, expecting that I'm betting Dunkirk, expecting that it'd be a fast track. I knew Dunkirk didn't like it muddy. I knew he didn't like it sealed, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
3 o'clock in the afternoon, I knew I was cooked because I put my money in early. But the fact of the matter is that once they don't announce whether it's a muddy track, whether it's a muddy steel track, whether they're going to harrow the track, particularly for big races. And that, I mean, we're betting blindly here. There was no discussion whatsoever of the final condition under which the race was going to be run. And I feel the same way about Naira at Belmont. When you see muddy, you don't know whether that's muddy sealed, muddy, just going from good to muddy or whatever. There's just a wide variety of different surfaces and different ways in which they now pack the surfaces, and they need to announce before every in my opinion, they need to announce before every race what the condition of the race will be run under, and if it changes before the race, they should announce it again.
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly with you, and I'm going to ask my friend here to fire off an email or prepare a column on just that. It strikes me that it wouldn't be very difficult for the track superintendent to make a 30-second phone call to Tom Durkin or whoever it is with a templated sentence on what he sentence or two on what he'd done to the track between races and what the current track condition is. I agree wholeheartedly. What do you think? Thanks, Greg.
Okay.
You know, and I would add too that as Greg points out, there's such a fine line between differing track conditions that I think that not only should they tell us every race whether it's muddy or it has been sealed or they should tell whatever track maintenance they've done.
Absolutely.
Durkin should come on and say the track condition is muddy. We've floated the track between the 4th and the 5th races.
Yep.
Or the track condition is wet fast. It was harrowed to a depth of 3 inches since the last race. We should, whether you like that information or not, it ought to be out there so that people who want to use it have it.
Okay, and I hope you're going to raise that question.
Sure, I'll raise it.
I want you to
All
raise
you got to
that
do
question.
is remind me.
I'll write
because
it down. I know.
My brain is...
We have to take this call, and then we have to get out of here.
Bill in Colony is going to wrap us up today. Bill, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks. Thanks for your program and for OTB and for internet wagering on online track odds. Anyway, as far as the surface is concerned, the day before yesterday, Mike Luzzy was working a horse out on the turf, and he told the trainer that it was concrete. He says the turf was actually concrete. So maybe, like you were talking about these 30-second calls in between races, the best person to go to would be the jockey to tell you, what the condition of the track is like. Because we're not going to get it in the racing form. They're not going to show you that, for example, 9 out of 10 races will run on the front end, et cetera. You're just not going to get that information, So, had you known that yesterday, that it was concrete, give you a little bit of an edge with some speed horses. But anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is most of the things are by either trainers or jockeys. It's like Ed McBain's thing. Some trainers, it's not really a system they have. They have to run their horse because their horse is in shape.
Right.
Yep.
And if they can't get, if there's no race written for their condition, allowance, or claim, they have to run the horse.
Run them anyway, right.
And we don't know that later on, unless you're writing things down.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent points all, Bill.
Thank you very much.
One of the things that I was just thinking about.
You were thinking.
When we see our good friend Andy Serling up here,
Yep.
maybe I could posit to Andy that he ought to announce what since he's doing the pre-race prattle, maybe he could announce what track maintenance has been done.
I'll remind you.
Remind me.
We want to thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, write us at Trackfacts. There it is, P.O. Box 554. I still live in East Greenbush. You can email us. Get me at Turkfacts, TRKFACTS, at nightcap.roadrunner.com. Get Nick Kling or me at trackfacts@gmail.com. I want to thank Daniel and Patrick for their work. We want to remind you of the expo next week. Next Saturday, be there. Join us. Be there. And next Sunday, John Signer will be in here taking phone calls and giving us all information what's going on with Capital Off Track. Have a great week. Let's hope the sun keeps shining. And if it's speed at Belmont, bet it. Get 4-1. Have a great week.
If you have any comments or suggestions, please write to the General Manager at the OTB Television Network, 510 Smith Street, Schenectady, New York, 12305.
This is the OTB Network.
This is great, it's a lot of fun. You're right next to the trainer, you're right next to the jockey.
I really felt they were the first organization that treated me as an individual, not as an investor. We've been in another racing partnership. You didn't even know who your other partners were. Parting Glass is like one big happy family.
Join Saratoga's original racing partnership. Visit us online at partingglassracing.com.